Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cruising with Matthew. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about P&O Cruises Azura. So in my previous video on Azura, I gave a brief overview of the ship, whereas today I thought I'd share the hints and tips that I learned whilst being on her, so that you can get the very best out of your time on Azura. And I really hope that you enjoy this and that you can sit back and relax. Number 1. Azura is quite a big ship. Although Azura isn't the largest of the P&O Cruises fleet, with the likes of Britannia being considerably bigger than her, she is still one of the largest, and I think people need to be aware of this when they consider to book on her, purely due to the fact that, due to her size, you've got a lot more walking to do when you need to get from A to B, and I think it's important that you are strategic in where you book your cabin, especially if you have limited mobility. That's not to say that if you have limited mobility you won't do well on Azura, but just to make things a little bit easier, I think this is something to consider, and you may want to situate yourselves a bit closer to the lifts or the public areas that you think you'll frequent most often. And the flip side of this means that because Azura is such a big ship, you have a wide range of cabin choices, entertainment options and dining options on board. So there is always that, but I do think it is something that people need to consider. Number 2. Azura actually has a promenade deck. I was really happy to see that Azura had her own promenade deck, and for those of you who have watched my Britannia videos, you'll know that the lack of a promenade deck on Britannia was something that I felt she really missed, purely due to the fact that when I'm on a cruise, I really want to connect to the sea and be able to see it as much as possible, and I feel like the promenade deck is the best place for this because it's quite low down and just below the lifeboats, so you can really get brilliant views of the sea and any of the landscapes that may be passing by at that time. So I'm really glad that Azura had this, and I loved walking around here during the day or in the evening, and it felt like it was a really magical experience, and it made me feel like I was on a ship, if that makes sense. In terms of her design, it is a bit narrower compared to other ships in the fleet such as Oceania and Aurora. However, it did become particularly narrow at the back of the ship, and in some cases you did almost have to step aside if someone was coming in the other way because there isn't enough room for two people to go in opposite directions. But it wasn't really an issue and was totally worth being able to go to the back of the ship and being able to see these fantastic wake views, which I always go on about. One thing that I did find quite peculiar was the fact that you're not able to access the bow directly from the promenade, which means that in a sense it's not a fully wraparound promenade deck because you have to go back into the ship to go from port to starboard. And what I find most peculiar is that other members of the Grand class ships, including Ventura or Crown Princess, which I visited in July, do have steps going up to the bow, which is a shame because it almost disjoints from the feeling of being on a promenade deck because you have to go back inside, and it also means that people don't know that you can access the bow, which is a real shame because it is a fantastic place to go during sailaways or even when the ship is underway at sea. So moving on from this, number 3, you can access the bow. I always like to find the little nooks and crannies that most people don't know about when I'm going on a cruise, and Azura's open bow is no exception. Personally, I'd like to thank Holidays at Sea for highlighting to me when I told people that I was going on Azura that you can access this area, and I'm really thankful for that. And I'd really like to highlight that you can access it, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of how to get to the front of the ship. So if you're on the promenade deck and you reach the end, you should take a left or right, depending if you're port and starboard, and go up a deck onto deck 8. You will have to walk through a series of cabins, and for some reason the open bow isn't highlighted on the deck plans that well. So trust me, walk through the cabins right to the end of the ship. You will then reach a series of doors, which the first one should say access to Azura's bow. You then should open it and you have to step over quite a raised threshold because obviously it's an exterior access to the ship. So in rough weather, it's to stop any water seeping through for obvious reasons. So I'm afraid if you have limited mobility or especially if you're wheelchair bound, I don't know if you're going to be able to access this, but it is worth asking to see if there may be a ramp option or something that you can have. So once you go through a second door, and this is almost like a big bulkhead door, and if you can get through this, then you will have these beautiful panoramic views of the front of the ship. And without meaning to quote Titanic, if you're at the very, very front and you can't see the ship at either side, you almost feel like you're flying, and it's such a magical experience because all you have is the sea roaring in your ears and just the sea open in front of you, and it's an absolutely magical experience. So I'd really recommend that you can go here. However, I would be aware of the fact that if it is rough weather, chances are you're not going to be able to access it because the winds here are really prominent, because you are at the very front of the ship. There is nothing obstructing you, and even when it was quite a calm day, you did have to hold on to everything that you had, and especially my phone, because several cases I was worried it was going to fly off the side of the ship. So if you are wanting to take videos and pictures, I'd really recommend that you hold on to whatever camera or phone that you have on really tightly. But it is a fantastic place to go, and I'd recommend that you would go at least once, whether it be for a sail away or even just during the sea days to pass the time, because it is a gorgeous place and not many people know about it. Number 4, the buffet is a bit odd. When I went to the buffet on the first day of our 14-night cruise, one of the things that really surprised me was the design of the buffet restaurant. Now, firstly, it's split into 2 areas, the Venezia and Verona restaurant, which is fair enough, but the way they designed it was, and unfortunately don't have any pictures of this, you had a enclosed area which was for tables, then you had the walkway, and then you had the buffet actually on a separate area. So it meant that you had to cross through people walking through us to get to the buffet restaurant, and it operated under a one-way system, with some places being relatively narrow. Now, the issue was that some people inevitably didn't see the one-way sign, so they kind of came in the other way. And I had this issue where you may not have spotted something that you wanted to eat, but you've already passed it, so you have to kind of go back on yourself or walk all the way through to go back. And inevitably, you have people coming in at opposite directions, and it creates a bit of a bottleneck. And I really don't understand why they did this, because on Britannia, when we had such a larger amount of people, I never felt that the buffet was that bad, because it was a lovely open plan restaurant and there was no areas that would stop people walking through. And I don't know if this is an issue just on Azura or if it's on her sister ship Ventura or other Grand Class ships, but I really think what P&O should have done is had a more open plan buffet restaurant, or at least change it. But at the same time, it's not a massive issue, and it isn't like it ruined my buffet experience, and I love the food there, but it's just something to be aware of. Number 5, have a drink at the Planet Bar. Now, my favourite place to go for a drink had to have been the Planet Bar, purely due to the fact that you had such a unique position on the ship. Now, I've always been used to crow's nest type bars when I've been on ships, which means that I like having a drink over the front of the ship, because it's situated right above the bridge and you get these beautiful forward views just over the bow. However, in contrast, the Planet Bar is actually right at the back of the ship and even hangs over slightly. So it means that you get these really unique side-on views of the ship, and you also get the beautiful wake views that I always go on about. So it's a really unique place to have a drink, and I really like it. There's always musical duos playing in the evenings, and the staff there are really friendly. And something that I came across was that you even get little canapes if you go there before dinner. So I'd really recommend going, and it is a very popular venue, so try and get a seat. Number 6, attend the Captain's Gala party. Now, the Captain's Gala night is one of my favourite nights on board Azura, purely due to the fact that it's the very first time that everyone gets a chance to properly dress up in their formal wear. And to make it even better, everyone congregates around the atrium and you get to hear a lovely speech from the captain detailing the itinerary, as well as you get to meet all the heads of staff, and it's just a really nice event. And all the way through, you get free drinks provided from the lovely waiters, and I just think it's a really magical experience. And I would really recommend that people do this, even if you're not 100% sure if you like dressing up for formal nights, because it is a really nice event and everyone's really chatty, and we got to know some people who we chatted out throughout the cruise due to this event, and it's just a lovely place, so I would really recommend that people go to it. Number 7, make sure that you go to the theatre. Now, the theatre on board Azura is really big, and I never saw anyone struggling to get a seat, even for the very big shows that were being put on, such as Astonishing, which is a very popular show on board any of the P&O Cruises ships. And I'd recommend that people go to the theatre, because I know that not everyone likes musicals or don't think that theatre's their thing because they haven't been before, but like with anything with cruising, this is the opportunity to try stuff that you wouldn't normally do, and the calibre on board these ships is absolutely amazing, and the headliners work so hard and they put so many different routines in that I'd really recommend that you give it a try. And I'd thoroughly recommend seeing Astonishing, because although I've seen it 3 times on 3 different ships, I'm still taken aback by the performance, and it's just such a good thing to do. So please, if you get the opportunity, please go, even if you're not sure that you're going to like it, because I can bet that you will find at the end of it that you think that you had a fantastic time. Number 8, climb to the top of the planet bar. Now, this might be slightly odd to say that you should go even higher than the planet bar, and if you're scared of heights, you might be thinking that I'm absolutely bonkers, because it is the highest point on the ship, and you're almost eye level with the funnels, but I think it's a lovely place to go on Azura, purely due to the fact that, again, like the open bow, not many people know you can actually get that high. And you have a load of sunbeds that not many people go on because it's quite high up and people don't think it's there. So it tends to be quite quiet even during the busy sea days when most sunbeds are elsewhere occupied. And you can be sure that you'll get a nice sea breeze as well, even if the ship's in port, which was very good for us because when we were in Civitavecchia, it was nearly 40 degrees, but the sea breeze was just enough to make sure that you didn't entirely cook. So it's a really good place to go. And you get these lovely views all around the ship basically, because you can look right down the side as well as the back of the ship as well, so it's definitely a spot to visit. Number 9, get up early to watch the sunrise or stay out to watch the sunset. Now, I definitely recommend that you get to sit out and watch a sunset or a sunrise at least once during your cruise on Azura or any other ship for that matter, purely due to the fact that the colours that you get to see whilst you're on the ocean is just absolutely mind-blowing, and I wish that I could paint, because nature truly gives the best possible pictures that I've ever seen. And although a sunrise is very early in the morning, I think it was about 6 when I was able to see one, I would really recommend it if you have an early start. And I would just recommend that you get up just a little bit earlier, because when we sailed into Gibraltar, we docked at around, I'd probably say about 7 in the morning. So I got up at 6 because I wanted to see the sail into Gibraltar and be able to see the rock in sunrise. And it was the best thing that I did on the cruise, because the colours that you got to see with the rock being really imposing, rising out of the darkness, was just beautiful. And I would also recommend, if it's dark at the end of a night, provided you're awake enough, have a wander around the decks, because it tends to be completely deserted and the ship looks gorgeous all lit up, and you get some fantastic pictures as well. And it's just a lovely calming experience just to be surrounded by complete blackness almost, and the ship lit up in all its beautiful colours. It's definitely something to do in my opinion. Number 10, just enjoy the cruise. Now, I know that I've mentioned a couple times during this video particularly design flaws that I think could have been improved. I really think that Azura is a fantastic ship, and that you should approach her with a really excited mind, because after all, you're going on holiday, you're going to be able to explore fantastic ports, and you're not stuck in work, so what is there not to enjoy? And I'd really encourage people not to get put off by particular negative reviews or things like that if people ever come across them, because ultimately, yes, stuff may go wrong. You may experience, say, you miss a port, for example, and that's out of your control, but ultimately a cruise is what you make of it. So please just enjoy her, because she is a gorgeous ship, and any of the P&O Cruises fleet are, to be fair, and you will have a fantastic time. And I really hope that you enjoy Azura, and I hope that these videos have really helped. My final thoughts on P&O Azura. So I've really enjoyed being on Azura, and I think she's a fantastic ship, and I really hope that this hints and tips talk has really helped you learn about the particular areas that I think are definitely a must visit when you get to go on Azura, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video. As always, please like and subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more from my cruisers, and if you have any other questions, please comment below and I'll do my very best to answer them. So this is Cruising with Matthew, and thank you very much for watching.